It's a little bit of a late start. But we're here. It's Friday. Sorry, the title is wrong. It is July 15th. That is Jimmy James. And today is day 142. Can you believe it?
I can tell you one time.
He's going to tell us more than one time.
With us. I can tell you one
We're about to get demonetized.
That will fuck you up.
Right there.
I can tell you one time.
It's a good thing I'm not monetized.
I'll tell you one time. This day belongs to us.
Followed by the background sounds of... Oh yeah. Is it any coincidence that my RPK is the same length and weight of my bass guitar? Doubtful. Oh yeah. It goes on for a while. Now I was never monetized. Not even once. Actually, I was. But then YouTube decided to move goalposts. So there it is. The intro. Welcome. Good evening. Today is July 15th, 2022. Despite my slight faux pas with the title, I got everything else right except the date. My mistake. But yes, this is the War Room. And it is day 142 as of today. However, we will be covering the events of day 136 up to today. And I do have my co-host, the man who strikes at night with a Y. And this is Mikhail Nightstrikesky. So, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening. I'm still listening to my intro.
Oh, nice. That is correct. So, for those of you who don't know, I brought you in much earlier than usual, just so I can go ahead and get started, because last week's show ran almost 4 hours. Good God.
You invited debate, and when that happened, everybody decided to jump in at once, and that
you
was
know,
your problem.
I'm okay with that. And if you guys are willing to sit through 4 hours, I'm willing to broadcast 4 hours. But Scott's not here. Jaime's not here because he's hiding like a little bitch, because the RPK from PSA came back into stock yesterday. How's that for alliteration?
Yeah.
And he hid like a little bitch. But his excuse is valid. He had midterms in the summer.
I'm not buying an RPK right now because I've already saved. I've already made the money and saved it up. I'm buying a ghost gunner, so I can make my own AK.
I know, that's fine. Whatever, it's cool. Besides, you have an M1A and I don't. You have an M14 and I don't.
No, it's an M14.
And
not
you have
an M1A.
you have an M1 Garand and I don't.
I have an M1
So
Garand.
props to you, for
And
sure.
I have a Krag.
I have a Krag. You have a Krag. We have Krags.
We have Krags.
We have Krags.
It's
So-
not a venereal disease. No matter what you're thinking out there.
No, it's
Right.
it's Genesis.
Actually, even without the butt plate, the one I showed you, honestly, the cut down stock doesn't look that bad. Honestly, they did a good job on that one.
They did okay. I think it looks okay. I'm totally
mean-
fine with it. Yours is definitely cut from a different cloth compared to my sporter, but we both have Krag 98 actions, which are probably one of the smoothest you can get in a milsurp, and they both work, and we both got a good deal.
My
So
bolt is really, really smooth.
they are. I mean, well, one locking lug makes the difference. It's just,
Yeah, it really does.
it's slicker than Gorilla Snot. Anyway, week in review. I came across some money and I spent that money. And now I have to give that money back because apparently the people I sold a dog to can't keep the dog because their dog keeps attacking the dog I sold them. So, for those of you who don't know, I had a litter of puppies back on January 3rd, and I had one female, which was like hitting the genetic color lottery for my dog. She had 4 colors, and I named her in honor of Betty White, which I named her Betty White because I name all my dogs after world conquerors. And for those of you who don't think Betty White's a world conqueror, sit your ass down and shut the fuck up. Because she was. She was the second to last Highlander on Earth. And now, the only one we have left is Keith Richards, whose forehead looks like a nutsack.
It's true.
But she will be coming back home tomorrow, which means I get Betty White back. And this time, she will stay here for perpetuity. Because I never intended to sell her in the first place. I made a commitment to these people, and I wanted to honor it, and it didn't work out. So I get my dog back tomorrow, and she will never leave here again. She's mine. Think of it as a corrected mistake. Unfortunately, that also put Pwnery into Team Ramen Noodle for the next 6 weeks. Sort of. So, as a celebration of being in Team Ramen Noodle, I had ribeyes and a shitload of IPAs tonight for dinner, which is why I'm a little loose in the tongue tonight. But looking at today's War Room thumbnail and picture, which you all see today on the right side of your screen, my RPK's right there on the screen.
You've had it forever.
I know, but the man with the balaclava in this picture, RBK, all day. Awesome. So yeah, today's show is sponsored by my RPK, which weighs 19 pounds, fully loaded, with its 40-round magazine, all steel. But that's fine, because we're not going to have any negligent discharges today.
All your fault.
Hopefully. And apparently I have to reach over and I have to drag in the Polish hammer. So bear with me for a second. Oh, I'll do it. There he is, the Polish hammer, Warsaw Patriot. Good evening to you, sir.
Oh, hopefully.
Hey, Nitstretsky, Shansky.
Komradzki.
I like that. Shansky.
Shansky. Komradzki. Anyway.
Nitstretsky.
Anyway, I gotta try to balance this thing without crushing my nuts with a 40-round mag. So let me just take this out now.
I'm surprised you don't have the drum yet.
I do. It's actually sitting next to where I just put the 40-round mag, but it's already
Put
19
the drum
pounds.
on, man. Put the drum on.
It's 19 pounds with the 40-rounder. It's
You know what?
21 pounds with the drum.
Stop being such a baby and put the drum on.
Listen. You're the one who rocks back and forth firing a grand. And you outweigh me by a fair bit. I'm not going to say numbers. A fair bit. A fair bit. But a fully loaded RPK with a 75-round drum is quite heavy while it's sitting in your lap. On top of your wedding tackle.
It's not that bad.
You're gonna make me go and buy an RPK.
Yes.
And
Yes.
drum, just so I can tell you that you're full of it.
Am I going to poor shame you today?
If you're gonna buy an RPK, it's gotta be Chinese.
No. God, no.
The Chinese did make an RPK, by the way.
Yes, but they're very expensive. No, mine is Slava Romania.
If I have to do that, I have to get a Type 86, right?
Go on.
Or actually, I got some better in mind. Not an RPK. How about an RPD?
That's next.
I could probably build one if I get.
Stay tuned, folks. Next, Pwnery's This Old Cat will cover an RPD as he goes to the soup kitchen.
And
No,
I
RPD is
probably
definitely on my
build
to-do list.
An MG3.
Well, So, I think you were here earlier when I talked about this.
No.
SHOT Show this year was kind of a goose egg for me in terms of what came out. So there wasn't anything that I wanted to buy. So I thought, oh, great. I'll just, pay down some of my debts and I'll have a bunch of money for next year. And then what did I do? I bought a Python and an Anaconda and two AKs and an RPK. And it's like, well, so much for that idea.
I bought some ARs. I sold some ARs. I bought a Krag this year. It's weird, but I got one.
Yes.
I got one at a decent price instead
Yes,
of
you did.
the I know what I've got price, which is all over the place these days.
Yes, and then we talked about computer upgrades and video games and video cards and.
We need to have that video game chat.
Are you sure you want to do that after what we talked about today?
You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to pour shame.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
I keep encouraging Nightspread to get a Tokarev. He needs one in his collection.
I can't find a Chinese one.
You don't need a Chinese Tokarev.
Get a Yugo one for 9 rounds of glory instead of 8.
Wait, you want a Chinese one now?
Well, just so we get the whole China strike out of your system.
No.
I know where one is. Hold up. I got one for everybody.
Let me find a Chinese Tokarev. So
no, you don't need it.
Yes, actually, the Chinese ones are not that bad. Here, hold up.
You need a Yugo M57. End of story.
Oh, here, Chinese Tokarev, $200.
Type 54.
$200?
$200 isn't a bad
Wait,
deal.
Isn't that a TT33?
Here, I got one right here.
$200?
It's either two. It's either that one's out of stock. Hold up. I know where one is.
$200 and I'll buy one.
I'll buy
one. Hold up. It's either $200 or $300.
$300.
Yeah.
I'm buying the Yugo.
Yeah, $300. I buy the Yugo too.
Because my Yugo was like $259.
Yeah.
And then I bought the combat grip and the compensator and. Well, I don't know if you can get it now, but there was a guy in Russia that was selling shoulder rigs for it, and I got that. And I got the shoulder rig and the belt holster.
So this is the pre-chat right now.
No, we're on. We're live.
We're live.
This is super live.
We are live.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So good evening to Travis P11, who said Keith Richards cannot be killed by conventional weapons. You are correct because he is the last Highlander. He can only be killed by beheading with a hand and a half. And Jimmy James, the New Watch podcast, who provided the theme song for tonight's show, and many others.
I still like mine better. I think mine was done better, actually.
Because I put a lot of work into yours.
I know you did.
Here, found it. $350. Cheap.
Wait, no, that's not cheap. M57s for $299 are cheap.
No, this is a Chinese Tokarev M54. Type 54.
Listen, I'm going to have to do this because Mikey didn't have a hit or miss this week, so I'm just going to give you a little teaser.
There.
Hang on, I'm going to give you an audio.
I sent you. That's right.
I'm giving you an audio teaser. Because you get to hear this coming up Tuesday, 9 o'clock.
There you go, my friend. Chinese Tokarev. And I could get you a holster for cheap off eBay for you.
This, what you're hearing, you will hear this and see the video for it. That's all you get. But you get to hear that this Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, right? 9 o'clock Eastern time, hit or miss, Tuesday. I'll be there, he'll be there, that video will be there, and you get to see it in its entirety. But if you're a subscriber to my channel, you probably saw it 2 weeks ago. And for those of you who don't know, the New Watch podcast, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and whenever the hell else they feel like doing it, they've got a show. And they've got their own intro, too. And I don't know if you guys heard it or not, but I'll give you a little taste of that, too. Because you probably heard this before. And if you ain't seen the video for this, you're missing out. So So that's
Don't
coming
cut 'em.
too.
Don't
Both
cut
of
'em.
those are coming to you. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They will be off next week at the New Watch because Jimmy's got a road trip to make. However, if you saw my channel a couple days ago, you saw the full-length video of that too, which is cool. Sampled pop-off. Yeah, I gave a little teaser for both of y'all. All of y'all. So, good evening to all of you. Mikey, you're here. Shady Hill, you're here. Terry, you're here. Warsaw, the Polish Hammer, you're here. DJ, you're here. Travis, you're definitely here. So, good evening to all of you.
Sean, that's one.
What?
You know what?
Don't call me Mikey.
Mikey. Okay,
We're gonna
yeah.
be-
Well,
We're
no,
gonna have
because
a feud here in a little bit if you keep calling me Mikey.
I'm gonna
just
call
telling
you
right
Mikey, and I'm gonna invite Mikey Tuttle from Orange County Choppers over here, and then you're not gonna have to say shit because you're gonna be like, "How did you even know that guy?" Anyway, this rifle's getting really heavy in my hands. So let me put this down.
now. Put it down, Jesus.
I was holding it up the whole time.
Jesus.
I told you guys, if you think 21 pounds for a rifle's heavy, lift more weights, you sad sacks of shit. Anyway, demonetized.
You're already
like,
demonetized. I'm sorry.
For once, I'd
already
like DJ to be on the panel one time.
DJ never wants to be on the panel. Besides, he spends more time in my penny arcades than he does this. Oh, and I have an announcement to make. If you notice, I haven't done any penny arcades for like the last week and a half. It's not because I don't have things to cover. I've been playing the things I want to record, and honestly, they don't record well. So I haven't really had anything to share with you guys. I've got a bunch of stuff that I got, but it doesn't film well. So what I think I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take some time off on penny arcades, and I'm going to bring back Kicking It Old School. Because I originally intended to take only 4 weeks off between Season 1 and Season 2 of Kicking It Old School. Instead, I took 6 months off. My apologies. So this Sunday, there will be Season 2 premiere of Kicking It Old School. I'm not sure what I'm going to put on it yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm committed to doing it. So that's what we're going to do. Because I got games. Like, I ended up getting MS
You know
Flight
what you're also
Simulator
committed to
2020.
doing, but we haven't done yet?
What's that?
You know what you're committed to doing, but you haven't done yet?
Do you really want me to poor shame you during that whole chat?
You should stop it.
Okay then.
Stop.
Okay then.
Hey,
Anyway.
you either Porsche shame him or he's gonna buy a Chinese Stoker Rev.
Well, the point is I got MS Flight Simulator 2020, which is the backgrounds are visually fantastic. The controls are garbage. And then I got Lockheed Martin's Prepare 3D version 5, which was like $1,000. I am enjoying that,
You
but
paid
it doesn't
$1,000 for that?
it doesn't film well. See, that's the thing. Like, let me give you a good example. Yesterday, I set up a flight between Kodiak Island, Alaska, where I like to vacation, which I would like to eventually retire to, and I flew to Resolute Nunavut in the northern Canadian polar north, where the HMS Terror was found. And I think I did it in a Boeing RB-50, which is a later rendition of a B-29. It was fun, but it doesn't film well. It's very procedural and kind of boring to watch. It's fun to play, boring to watch. Usually I set up the flight, hit the autopilot, and watch some Grim Reapers videos. Thanks to Scott for turning me onto that. Because after that, then I got
I'd rather watch Red versus.
I got DCS, Digital Combat Simulator. That led me to getting IL-2 Sturmovik, which has tank battles and aircraft battles now.
And Stormovic is pretty good.
Yes, it is.
I've got that one.
I'm going to bug you about that because I think we're going to do the tank battles in that too. And I also got
That's
Hell
gonna be
Let
the best
Loose. And I also have Proscriptum.
I gotta get that one too.
And I got a Mute Warsaw for jerking off on his microphone.
I'm eating, sorry.
Well, mute your shit while you eat.
Mute your shit while you eat.
Anyway, so yeah, ideally what I'd like to do is I have Postscriptum and I have Hell Let Loose. I want to do tank battles. Mikey here has one of those games, and I'll probably gift him the other one because he's
No,
a
I don't
poor.
have either of the games.
Well, I'll gift you
got
one of them.
I'm gonna get one of them. I'm gonna get Postscriptum.
Okay, well, I'll gift you the other one because you're poor. But I'm looking
You've
for
got
people
games,
to
too.
do tank battles with. I need 5 people, 4 or 5 total. So if you are interested in doing tank battles, where we will put them on the channel, where somebody's a gunner, a driver, a loader, a commander, whatever, I want to do that. I want to. I have a dream of getting into battle and killing Grim Reapers and going, ha 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 ha, I gotcha, on camera.
Ooh.
Yeah. And angering the British. Not that I don't like them, it's just it'd be fun to kill them
Well,
in game.
can I say I don't like them?
No, they're very likable.
Well, you like the British? Oh,
No,
hail
I
the
don't-
Queen!
I-
Well,
Long
no,
live the
no. You
Queen.
see, that's the
I don't
thing.
like the British.
They're not. They're like Captain America, the First Avenger. They're like a multinational thing. They got set German. They got a French guy. They've got a couple of Afghani dudes. Like they are well multicultural. So, listening to them do commentary while they're doing dogfights and battles and things, they got everybody. And it's like, we should do that.
We
should-
need an American crew.
Well, yeah, so let's fucking do it. That's the whole point. Anyway, I want to kick some Panzer ass. So if you guys are interested in the idea, it's either going to be
Alright.
Postscriptum or Hell Let Loose. The closer we get to doing this and doing it live on camera, I will set up a channel. I will invite you to the server to do that. We will film it and we will kick some Panzer ass. So
Now that
that's it.
I'm getting a new graphics card, I'll
Yes,
be able to. do
Mikey's
better things.
buying a 4K 144 hertz capable video card, and he's going to play it on a ghetto monitor. You opened yourself up to that.
Until he can buy.
Until he can buy a Samsung Q9 60-inch curved screen 4K.
I'm not paying $1,000 for that. I'm sorry.
He's thinking like a poor.
No, I'm thinking right.
poor. Anyway.
And Night Strike.
Don't you start two wars.
Buy
I've already-
Chinese Tokarev and be happy.
No,
All right.
no.
look, a Chinese Tokarev is not going to give you 144 hertz.
It's not. It's really not.
All right,
Come
so
on.
anyway, enough of our angry housewife ranting. Let's go
Or
ahead and get
bantering.
into the stories because I don't want to do a 4-hour show. And none of y'all want to sit through it. I know.
It's gonna end up happening anyway.
No, it's not. I only have
Yeah.
11 stories today.
Yes, it is. You know it is.
No.
Let me ask you this, Sean.
Yes.
I'm not going to ask the whole question. Is it include Alaska?
What?
The
Oh,
Russians
no,
are claiming.
no, I don't. I'm gonna share 11 stories. These two guys are gonna listen to the stories I present, and if there's any duplicates with the stories they want to share, they can cross it off the list to make their life easier. And then at the end of my 11, then anything I missed, these two will share. And if they have
Oh,
screen
God.
shares, I will highlight them so you can see them all in full HD clarity.
Yeah.
But the thing you asked, no, I didn't do that. So you can share that one later. Cool? Good. Okay. So, first story comes from Saturday, July 9th. So a week ago, 6 days ago, day 136. And here's a picture for you. The Biden administration and lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have pledged to counter Russia's war in Ukraine and the threat it poses to European security. And the funds so far committed to Kyiv have already exceeded the U.S. cost for the first 5 years in Afghanistan. The Biden administration on Friday announced another $400 million military drawdown package to Ukraine as it attempts to fend off Russian advances. The latest package was reportedly tailored in coordination with Ukrainian officials for what they specifically need on the front lines, and comes just days after Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed victory over the eastern Luhansk region. Heavy artillery like howitzers and high-mobility artillery rocket systems, HIMARS, are among the big-ticket items that Ukraine has said it needs to target Russian command and control hotspots that sit behind the front lines. The Pentagon on Friday confirmed that the U.S. has provided $8 billion in security assistance since Russia's invasion back in February, but Washington is committed to spending far more.
Billion as in billion?
Billion with a B, not with a
With
Y.
B.
Yes.
Not with a Y. Okay.
Earlier this year, Congress committed to spending $54 billion in traditional foreign aid and military assistance in a move to help squash Putin's offensive. The funds will largely be divided through traditional channels to support Ukraine, but will also provide support to NATO nations and U.S. troops stationed in Europe. The majority of the package will be distributed in the immediate term, likely before the end of the year. There are measures in the latest $40 billion package passed in May that could take years to implement, like the procurement of an additional Patriot missile battery that could potentially be built in an allied nation like Poland. Now, sidebar, we have already moved Patriot batteries from other places into Poland at the border with Ukraine, should Russia get a little froggy. So now they're talking about a permanent one built, bought, and sent to Poland specifically, just so you know. End sidebar. Anyway, this was according to a report by the Center for Strategic and International Studies. It remains unclear how much of the U.S. will end up spending in 2022 on countering Putin's aggression, but according to information provided by foreignassistance.gov, the U.S. has already spent more on security assistance to Ukraine than during the first 5 years in Afghanistan. By the end of 2006, the U.S. had spent more than $7.4 billion in its first fight against the Taliban. By 2011, the cost of the 20-year war had reached its peak, when it spent $11.4 billion in that 1 year alone. Biden and other Western leaders have pledged to continue to support Ukraine, quote, as long as it takes. So, yeah, this is 136 days, and we have spent more in Ukraine than we had in Afghanistan for 5 years. And I'm not upset by that. I'm okay with that. The only thing I'm not okay with, where is my fucking MRAP? You've heard me say it before. Some asshole in Afghanistan is driving my MRAP. Moving right along.
Bad days.
Moving straight into Sunday. I tried to keep 1 or 2 stories per day so I don't drag this out. Sunday, July 10th, date 137. And I have this photo for you. On site, on location. Actually, the guy that I know from New Jersey who volunteered to work in Afghanistan, according to him, he was at this site, but that's not his picture. But he was at that site, so that's kind of cool. A rocket attack in Ukraine killed at least 15 people, with almost 24 or more possibly trapped under the rubble as authorities worked to clear the site. The Russian attack occurred overnight Saturday in the eastern town of Chaziv Yar, hitting an apartment complex. That one. Regional emergency services worked to rescue victims from the rubble throughout Sunday, saying in the afternoon that 24 or more people may still be trapped under the debris. Pavlo Kirilenko, governor of the region, said that Russian forces fired rockets from trucks. Katyushas, I guess. He identified them as Uragan rockets, a Soviet-era design and model. The emergency service said that workers have remained in contact with at least 3 people under the rubble. The attack presents another contradiction of Russian claims that the military is hitting only targets of military value. Andriy Yermak, chief of staff to Ukrainian President Zelensky, in a Telegram post called the attack terroristic activity and demanded that other nations label Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism. The Saturday night rocket assault...
Surprise, surprise.
Well, yeah. The Saturday night rocket assault is also the latest in a recent burst of high-casualty attacks on civilian structures. At least 19 people died when a Russian missile hit a shopping mall in the city of Kremenchuk in late June, and 21 people were killed, I think we covered that last week actually, when an apartment building and recreation area came under rocket fire in the southern Odessa region this month. Luhansk Governor Serhiy Haidai on Saturday said that Russian forces are raising true hell in the region. So far, there's been no operational pause announced by the enemy, Haidai said. He is still attacking and shelling our lands with the same intensity as before. Haidai claimed that the Ukrainian forces had also destroyed ammunition depots and a Russian barracks, which he hoped would cause some pause or slow down the attacks. So far, no confirmation of that had happened. Slowdowns, that is. Moving right along. See, this is going this is smooth. Monday, July 11th, day 138. And if you didn't know, I guess you're about to be in for a surprise. But I titled this photo, Bye Bye Boris. Boris Johnson's resignation as Prime Minister should not significantly impact the United Kingdom's support for Ukraine, even as the war against Russia drags on and the costs keep piling up. Concerning British policy, we do believe that it remains unchanged. Foreign Minister of Infrastructure Vladimir Omelian reports. Regardless of who is coming to take over the Prime Minister's post, he will or she will pay the same attention to the international agenda. It's pretty confident making that declaration, if I'm honest. Johnson on Thursday announced his intent to step down from the top position following increased calls for his resignation from within his own party, coupled with dozens of ministers quitting his government due to a series of scandals that had led to a, quote, loss of trust from the public. But with Johnson's resignation comes the fear that Ukraine has lost one of its staunchest allies. Only perhaps President Biden has remained so vocally committed to Ukraine's defense in the face of Russian invasion. Johnson made 2 separate visits to Kyiv, including one in the immediate aftermath of Russia's withdrawal from the capital city as a show of support and confidence in Ukraine's achievements. The first visit drew plaudits from all corners for Johnson's courage to walk into a war zone. But British Defense Minister Ben Wallace on Thursday reassured Ukraine that the UK would remain, quote, fully square behind Kyiv, despite Johnson's resignation. The assistance the UK gives to Ukraine is not just from one person, Wallace said. Not me, not the Prime Minister. It is an entire national effort. Actions matter in all of this, and while the Prime Minister will be incredibly sad to leave this post, he has led from the front on Ukraine. And he had done so on COVID, obviously, Brexit, and I think that it is not lost on very many people.
Because COVID.
Ted Broman, Senior Research Fellow in the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom, says that he does not believe that the UK will change its position, as the party itself has pushed an anti-Putin stance and agenda that will not disappear with Johnson. You have to bear in mind that, the UK had Russian assassinations on its soil, has a long history now of having troops deployed in the Baltic nations in support of the NATO mission. It has a long history, unlike France and Germany, of actually being willing to put its money where its mouth is as far as opposing the Russians.
Which is weird.
Wait. Ted Broman. Shit talker. Think about it. What he just said there. You have to bear in mind that UK had Russian assassinations on its soil. So they're saying that the British killed Russians in its own country, and it has a long history of troops deployed in the Baltic nations, and it poked fun at France and Germany for not putting its money where its mouth is. This guy's an asshole. Think about that. Anyway, Ukraine officials do not question the British commitment to supporting Ukraine, no matter who takes over. Omelian said that he is very grateful for all of Boris Johnson's efforts to help Ukraine, and we believe he was and is still a great charismatic leader. We want to do our best to be with our allies in the first year, and with this great memory and great efforts, I think that previous policy will remain the same. In Ukraine, we are all very grateful to us and great in difficult circumstances. That doesn't make any sense. Support for Ukraine has wavered in Europe, with polls indicating that following strong solidarity with Kyiv in the first 100 days of the invasion, the public now appears more divided over long-term goals. The European Council on Foreign Relations found that most countries would prefer a peace solution than continue to pursue justice for Ukraine.
Because most countries are pussies.
Most countries want Ukraine to capitulate in the name of peace, despite the fact that they were the ones who were invaded,
Mm-hmm.
Also,
rather than
not
to pursue justice.
also not to mention they asked the country to disarm itself of all its nukes from this Cold War.
That was 2014, but yes, that is a valid point.
No, that wasn't 2014. That was 90s, 94.
It began in the 90s, but when Ukraine formally requested entry into NATO, they specifically said, sure, but you got to disarm all your Russian left behind nukes. We've covered this countless times, but you're right. It happened twice throughout their history. You're right. Cannot deny that. Anyway, O'Malley believes that the threat of Russian aggression against other European nations will drive leaders in those countries to continue supporting Ukraine in its defense. French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi visited Kyiv and met with Ukrainian President Zelensky just last month as a message of European unity. We understand that it's not about people getting upset or getting, let's say, fed up, O'Malley said. This war in Europe is all about the future. If you recall the first weeks of the war, not all leaders of the European Union or European nation were very much supportive of Ukraine, but people stood with us, he added. The big difference is that leaders finally understood the threat coming from Europe and Russia and will do anything possible. Ukrainians are dying, but Europeans are still not losing their lives. I wish it will never happen that war will come to the European Union or NATO member states. So, that's a lot of word salad. What I took from this story was that Boris Johnson, the Winston Churchill of our generation, the half American, half Briton, the charismatic, lovable idiot of British politics, the man who deliberately left his hair messed up and played the bumbling idiot to disarm your defenses, to the genius of who that man actually is in terms of policy, has resigned due to pressure by idiots on the left in his own country over stupid scandals about parties during COVID lockdowns. Are you fucking kidding me? They have forced one of the best leaders in their history to resign. One of the best foreign dignitaries in a crisis of European conflict to step down over bullshit. And now they're like, but don't worry, we're not going to change our policy. Why'd you change the man? Like, why were you guys such dicks about...
It's probably because they hate him, like just like they hated Donald Trump in America.
Well, yeah, exactly. He has been trumped. That is exactly what happened. You have let leftist idiots push another good foreign dignitary out of politics. In the name of what? Wokeism? Seriously?
Wokeism is bullshit.
Does wokeism fill your pockets? No.
Does wokeism strengthen your military?
No. Did it strengthen your border? No. Did it lower your energy prices? No. Did it
Did it improve
stymie
your education?
inflation? No. Did it make you
wokeism
safer?
stop an invading army?
No.
There you
And
go.
yet, there he goes.
Or did it diversify our countries? No.
Mr. Boris Johnson, I have known you for decades. I have watched you become a commentator, a journalist, a writer, a comedian in your journalism, and a world leader. And on behalf of the rest of the logically thinking world, I apologize that you had to step down because idiots pushed you out. I apologize on the behalf of humanity. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive us, because I'm not one of those people who wanted you out. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's.
Same day, I titled this picture, Not My Comrade.
No, not my comrade.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday expanded a program that swiftly grants Russian citizenship to all fleeing Ukrainians,
Oh, thank God that's on my
also known as separatist traitors.
list.
Prior to Putin signing the decree, the speedy citizenship process was only available to those in the eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions, together known as Donbass, and the Russian-controlled southern Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. Let me tell you why that's bullshit. They gave Russian citizenship to former heavyweight champion Roy Jones Jr., a boxer. Why am I apologizing to foreign dignitaries that you had nothing to do with getting pushed out? I didn't. I did it on behalf of humanity. And Mad Sexy has finally found us. Good evening to you, sir.
He's joined us with his presence.
Yes. Anyway, the expanded offer comes at a time when Russia has been bombarding Ukraine, with the city of Kharkiv getting blasted by 3 missile strikes, with a Y, in what a local official told the AP was absolute terrorism, also with a Y. Only civilian structures, a shopping center, and houses of peaceful Kharkiv residents came under fire of the Russians. Several shells hit the yards of private houses. Garages and cars were also destroyed. Several fires have broken out. This came from Kharkiv's regional governor, Ole. Oh boy. Give me a second. I gotta look at this for a second. Ole. Because this is a Cyrillic I'm not familiar with. Ole Sinyehubov. If you speak Russian better than I speak Russian, and you want to correct me on that pronunciation, go right ahead.
All I have to say is I lost my car keys in Kharkiv.
Ole Sinyehubov. Pretty sure that's how you say that.
Ooh.
He also
Pretty
says that those injured include children as young as the age of 4. Russian forces have been in constant action since taking the city of Lysychansk, the last major part of Luhansk that had been resisting. While analysts had expected Russia to take a break at that point to regroup and restock their arms, Ukrainian officials have not seen them take any downtime. While this has meant that Ukrainians have not had a respite in the midst of attacks, British military has observed that this has had a detrimental effect on Russian personnel. Videos posted online have led them to believe that at least one Russian brigade was mentally and physically exhausted. Mad Sexy asks, when's the last time I updated my banner on livestream? Banner.
Rolling banner?
If you're talking about the scroller, I updated it today. That's up to date. That was the last thing I did before I went on air, actually. That's completely up to date.
Maybe he's talking about Pwnery's breaking news special.
Oh, that banner up there, I change it every once in a while. The one you're looking at the top of the screen was actually one of the first ones I used. I sort of cycle between about half a dozen of them, if you're wondering. So if that was your question, then there's your answer. I use several different ones. It's just that one was from the very first episode, and then I have about at least 7 or 8 other ones. It's just I went with this one today. Moving right along. We are now into Tuesday. Oh, lower blue one. Okay, so yeah, he was talking about the scroller. Yeah, so the scroller gets updated every week. The background of it is the same, but the material that scrolls within it is the same, or is updated every week. One of the other things, I think I mentioned this a couple weeks back, was when I did it every day, the updates didn't look as good, I guess, because it was only like, oh, okay, well, between yesterday and today, we only knocked out 10 tanks. Or between yesterday and today, we only knocked out one AA unit. Doing this weekly, you get to see that between last week and this week, they knocked out, I think it was 3,300 infantry. That's pretty serious. That's a good sized number. They did not knock out any new ships in the last week. They had not. I don't think they shot down any new aircraft in the last week, because manpads and oh, what do they call those? I forgot what their AA missiles are called. There's two versions of it. There's a Model 3 and a Model 4. Anyway, they got all those. Russians are not flying planes over Ukraine anymore because they don't have enough to get shot down. They have run out of planes. They have slowly run out of tanks. They have employed T-54s and T-62s, which are first generation main battle tanks. They don't have shit for armor. They don't have shit for like modern S-300 and 400. Yes, thank you. Oh, Scott's not in the thing. He's in the text chat only. I just noticed that. Anyway, they don't have what you would call modern countermeasures. That's how far down into the surplus barrel they are, where they can't defend against even like TOW-2 missiles. Not even RPG-7s. If you want to see a really good film, by the way, of Russian technology in the 80s during the Afghan conflict, for them, George Dzunda, the Beast of War. I believe he is in a T-52 or a T-62A. Sorry, T-54 or T-62A. And that thing gets decimated by RPG-7s, which are a dumbfire weapon. Just a thought. Anyway, if you haven't seen The Beast of War, also known as just The Beast, do yourself a favor and check it out. It's actually quite a good movie. And, spoilers, the Afghans win. Anyway, moving on. Where am I on pictures? Let's see, I killed Not My Comrade already. Yeah. Alright, so let's move into Tuesday, July 12th, day 139. Next photo, here. This is actually pretty sobering, this statistic. More than 7,000 Ukrainian servicemen and women have been reported as missing in action since the war began, with officials warning that most are believed to be prisoners of war in Russia. Speaking to Ukrainian media on Monday, Oleg Kotenko, the commissioner for the issues of persons disappeared under special circumstances, said that the Ukrainian armed forces have reportedly roughly 2,000 soldiers missing in action. But the official said that this group of missing servicemen only represents a fraction of Ukraine's military. If we're talking about the military, then let's understand who the military are. There's the Armed Forces of Ukraine, there's the National Guard, then there are border guards, and then there are SBU, the Security Service of Ukraine. And these are different institutions, he explained. They are not included in the figure given by the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Kotenko said that some 7,200 Ukrainian soldiers are currently believed to be missing in action. Give me a second, Mad Sexy. I'll answer that question. The official said that most of the missing soldiers, 139.
Fine.
The official said that most of the missing soldiers are believed to be in Russian captivity, but not all of those who are missing have yet to been accounted for. Kotenko pointed out that the 1st Battalion of the 36th Brigade, likely in reference to the Marine Brigade that fought alongside the Azov Regiment in Mariupol, who reportedly surrendered to Russian forces earlier this year. We know that they were taken to Russia, he said. We need to understand how many people there are. If there are more than 100 of them, then we understand that practically the entire battalion is in captivity. The Ukrainian officials said that as long as communication with soldiers remains down, then they are considered missing in action. One of the ways Ukraine has been identifying soldiers who have been reported as missing is through prisoner exchanges with Moscow. Sooner or later, they're going to be on an exchange list, and they're going to come home, he added. This is where we know for sure that the missing are still alive. Ukraine and Russia have engaged in several prior prisoner swaps since the war began roughly 5 months ago. It is unclear how many Russian soldiers are believed to be missing in action. Of course not, because they're all dead. They're not missing. They're in mass graves, because that's what the Russians do. Russian things. And we lost Warsaw, because he had to go rub one out. Moving right along. Still...
You're being really abusive today.
I'm sorry. Today, Tuesday still. We're still on Tuesday. Belaruski. Belarus announced Tuesday that it had launched military drills along its shared border with Ukraine in an effort to assess the readiness of its territorial troops, Belarusian defense officials have said. Let me just tell you why that's bullshit. You don't need to hold military drills on the border with the nation that the whole world knows you're going to invade. Okay? The Russians did that a year ago. You're not fucking fooling anybody. Nobody. If you want to know the readiness of your territorial troops, why don't you take down your own opposition in your own country first? That's a pretty good way to see how well prepared you are.
I don't know.
Not that I'm promoting that.
Those other NATO nations that border Belarus, they may want to invade Belarus. I'm just saying.
Not a bad plan. Not against it.
You know, I'm not against it either. But they're not so, as I mentioned yesterday, not yesterday, but earlier last week, after we finished, some of those countries in the Baltic regions are demolishing their Soviet era monuments because they don't want to be associated with communism anymore.
Do you know who isn't destroying their Soviet era monuments?
Russia.
The Pacific Northwest.
Ooh.
They have a statue of Lenin. A bust of Lenin. Has it been taken down? No. Do they have any plans to do it? No. Anyway, let's see. Where did I leave off? The drills are slated to last from July 12th to the 14th and will assess troop preparedness for combat tasks and test the command abilities of reserve officers. This came from the Belarusian Defense Ministry. The drills will be held in the Gomel region, which shares a border with Ukraine, in an area directly north of Kyiv. Separate communication drills are being held from July 11th to the 15th, and will be led by the Chief of Communications of the Armed Forces. The Belarusian Ministry of Defense said that the training will not only assess the readiness of military units in the area, but will work out the issues of building up and functioning the communication system. Tactical and special training with the communications forces will be overseen by the Chief of Communications Department of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, Major General Oleg Maishenko. Sorry, there's two shishes in there. The servicemen will also be trained on new forms of communication networks for field support during combat. Translation: we're going to make sure that our Russian radios work with Russian counterparts. Let's not fool ourselves. Oh look, I think Scott wants in. Hang on a sec, let me drag him in here. There he is. Scottish Naya, late from dinner, but better late than never.
Yes. Well, it helps when you take a couple-hour nap.
It's fine. At least you're not going to be snoring in here then.
Don't count on it.
All right. Tactical and special training with the communications forces will be overseen. I already said that part. The servicemen will also be trained on new. I already said that part.
You already
The,
said that part.
the drills will be previously, or sorry, the drills were previously planned according to the Belarusian Defense Ministry, though it was unclear when they were planned.
You
Yesterday.
already said that part.
No, I didn't. Yesterday. That's when it
You
was
didn't?
planned.
Okay.
The announcement on the latest round of military drills near Ukraine's northern border comes just 1 month after Minsk said that its forces had begun combat readiness training and weeks after Russia was allowed to fire missiles at Ukrainian targets from within Belarus's borders.
Oh my.
Yeah. In early June, Ukrainian President Zelensky said that the threat of a ground invasion by Belarus in support of Russia was minimal, but noted that Ukraine was preparing for all the risks of an invasion. By late June, Zelensky had accused Moscow of attempting to drag Minsk into the war after the Ukrainian Defense Ministry said that a mass rocket bomb strike was launched, after 12 cruise missiles were fired from Russian planes flying over Belarusian airspace.
You don't say.
Western defense officials have long assessed that the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, the only European leader to back Moscow, is balancing the threat of entering a war and his unwavering support for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Lukashenko, who has faced mass protests following the 2020 re-election that many believed was rigged, another 2020 rigged election, imagine that,
No, that's not possible.
could face backlash at home. You mean like a January 6th? International sanctions and resistance in the Belarusian armed forces if he enters Putin's war. It is unclear how well Ukraine would be able to defend off a second offensive in the north as its eastern and southern regions continue to be pummeled by Russian forces. Ukrainian officials have suggested that they plan to counter Russia's forces in its southern regions by launching a 1 million-strong resistance force equipped with modern Western weaponry. We have approximately 700,000 in the armed forces, and when you add the National Guard, police, border guard, and the border guard, we're around 1 million strong. This came from Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov. Ukraine has urged civilians in its southern regions to evacuate as soon as they can ahead of a counterattack. Belarus is getting involved. NATO has a doctrine saying that NATO nations cannot invade a NATO nation. They also can't help a non-NATO nation unless... Well, that's the thing. If Ukraine requests NATO's assistance, then they should be able to help them. Unfortunately, NATO can't help with military assistance against another NATO nation. That's the problem. Mad Sexy's taken off, so we'll see you later.
Later, Mad. But you also have to figure that NATO won't get involved in the situation unless one NATO country is attacked.
Well, so no, that's the thing. If, let's say, well, no, can't say use Lithuania. Let's say Kyrgyzstan attacks Ukraine. Kyrgyzstan, one of those. Kyrgyzstan. Yeah. Let's say they attacked Ukraine, not Russia. NATO can intervene because Kyrgyzstan's not a NATO nation.
No, it's not. But why would they send their army halfway across the world just to attack?
I'm just using an example. As long as a non-NATO nation attacks a NATO nation or another nation, NATO can get involved. But since Russia's a NATO member and Ukraine is requesting assistance, the rest of NATO can't assist a country defending against another NATO nation. You see how that works?
I can see Armenia or Azerbaijan attacking Ukraine more than.
Here's a hair. Perhaps you'd like to split it. I'm just talking about the doctrine.
I know. I'm just saying, geographically.
The only way for NATO to do what it needs to do is if there was a vote to expel Russia from NATO. If that got unilateral support and Russia was kicked out of NATO, then yeah, you would have Ukraine filled with blue helmets in 24 hours.
Russia's not part of NATO.
UN?
No,
The
well,
United
part of the
Nations.
UN.
Well, they're
United
part of
Nations
one of
and
them.
NATO are two different organizations.
They're part of one of them.
Yeah, they're part of the United Nations.
So Article
not
5 is a
part of
UN thing.
NATO.
I always get the two confused. Article 5 is a UN thing?
Yeah, NATO was
It's NATO.
It's NATO. I knew it. Quiet, poor. See, I knew I was right. NATO.
No, blue helmets is United Nations.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, I got that part wrong.
So you got that fucking wrong.
Okay. Well done, poor.
Fuck you.
Even the poor get it right sometimes. Anyway, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. Okay, so yeah. If it was any other non-NATO nation attacking Ukraine, NATO would have been involved.
Right.
I have no doubt. But because there is a doctrine, thank you to Jaime, he's the one who mentioned it. He brought up doctrines before, and he was correct. We can't have NATO we can't have NATO defend a country against another NATO nation. That's the way the doctrine works. It's stupid because that means a NATO nation could commit atrocities to a non-NATO nation, knowing full well that NATO can't do shit about it, which is why Russia's getting away with this, which is exactly why Jens Stoltenberg needs to stop taking photo ops as a fucking Der Spiegel underwear model and say, Russia, GTFO, you're out of NATO. You sick Ruski fucks. Then NATO can get involved. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, that was terrible.
I don't think that's quite right, but let's move on.
Well, no, NATO can't defend another country, Ukraine,
NATO
against another NATO nation that's attacking it.
Russia was never part of NATO.
Russia is part of NATO.
They're part of the United Nations, not
the
NATO.
UN. NATO is big boys club in Europe.
Yes.
The UN is separate from NATO.
Russia had the Warsaw Pact, and then they ceased to be the Soviet Union.
Yes.
They
NATO
never joined
was
NATO.
Okay.
US,
So you're saying Russia's UN, not NATO?
Russia's part of the United Nations, not NATO.
Fine.
NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty
Fine.
Organization.
Okay, I get that. Okay. Either way, they can't attack them. There's a fucking policy that says they can't attack them. So unless you expel them from whichever club that is, you can't attack them. That's why they don't do it. Damn it. Now I'm confused. Am I the only one who's been drinking tonight?
Yes.
Well, Mike's poor. He can't afford beer.
No, I've got beer and I've got alcohol. I just don't drink all of
I'm
it.
just teasing. I teetotaled for a month, okay? Almost a month. Anyway, moving on. You might recognize this guy. His name is Jake Sullivan. The White House said that it believes Iran?
Iran so far away?
Well, let me do it correctly. The White House says it believes Iran.
Oh.
Hmm?
Oh.
That's the proper way to say it. Is planning to supply Russia with several hundred UAVs amid its war in Ukraine. The White House National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, said Monday, our information indicates that the Iranian government, he probably says Iranian, is prepared to provide Russia with several hundred UAVs, including weapons-capable UAVs, on an expedited timeline. Sullivan said it is unclear whether Iran, I'm just going to say Iran because that's what you guys are used to hearing, has already sent some of its drones to Russia, and said Washington officials have intelligence leading them to believe that Tehran is preparing to train Russian forces on the UAVs this month. The security advisor said that the fact that Russia was turning to other nations to help reinforce its brutal campaign in Ukraine shows that its war is, quote, coming at a cost to the sustainment of its own weapons. Despite attempts by Western nations to reach the nuclear agreement with Iran, the U.S. broadened its network of sanctions earlier this month after Tehran attempted to skirt U.S.-sanctioned Iranian petroleum and petrochemical products by selling the banned items to East Asia. China. Sullivan's announcement comes as President Biden is set to meet with world leaders in Saudi Arabia and Israel, where the Iran nuclear deal is likely to be a top issue. Both Saudi Arabia and Israel have resisted joining international efforts to punish President Putin over his illegal and deadly invasion of Ukraine. Iran has reportedly used the UAVs it will now be supplying Russia to arm Houthi rebels in Yemen, which frequently attack Saudi Arabia. Putin is also scheduled to travel to the Middle East this week and will meet with leaders from Iran and Turkey. Tell me again how this is not a global conflict. How is this not a world war?
It's not.
It is.
Between two countries.
It is. Remember, both world wars had started because of something small exploding into something large. The First World War started off by a do-nothing assassin killing a minor player in Europe, geopolitically speaking, which gave everyone else an excuse to take sides and fight. Right? World War II, because the Germans wanted to take an extended holiday in Poland. That's kind of the gist of it. Gave everyone else an excuse to fight. This, you have Russia beating on the door of Ukraine, which is basically the buffer nation between the Urals in Russia and the EU, mainland Europe, to Poland, in between. Buffer, right? You got that going on. Meanwhile, you have a proxy war with Iranian technology being donated to Syria and Russia for their proxy wars, at the same time while supplying parts to Yemen to attack Saudi Arabia. Global conflict. And on the other side of the world, you have China banging on the door of Taiwan. But they don't talk about that right now, because everyone's focused on what stupid thing is going to come out of Biden's mouth next.
What day are we on right now?
The thing, the thing.
Oh.
Do it. I know you got it. Cue it up.
All men and women created by you know the thing.
I know the thing. And now you all know the thing.
Yeah. But did you mention about Nord Stream?
It's coming.
Okay.
Matter of fact, it's the next story. I titled it Fuck Canada.
Did you go over Kaliningrad?
No, I'm getting there.
Okay.
I titled the story Fuck Canada.
Oh. All right.
Wednesday,
Fuck
July...
Canada.
Yeah.
Justin.
Wednesday, July 13th, day 140. The Ukrainian World Congress is taking legal action against Canada as it claims the country is breaking its own sanctions to help Russia. The lawsuit, announced Tuesday, seeks to stop the Canadian government from sending repaired Nord Stream 1 turbines back to Germany. The turbines will allow Russia to boost the amount of oil it carries and sells to European countries. The Ukrainian World Congress calls Canada's decision totally unacceptable and a grave mistake with dire consequences. We cannot supply a terrorist state with the tools it needs to finance the killing of tens of thousands of innocent people, the Ukrainian World Congress president and CEO Paul Grodzhead said. This is not about a turbine or possible many turbines to support Russia's energy exports. This is about continuously succumbing to Russia's blackmail. The lawsuit comes just days after Canada announced that it had sought a time-limited and revocable permit to allow for the return of the turbines, as they will increase energy flows to Europe amid a global shortage. The Nord Stream 1 has seen its production drop to 40% capacity without the turbines. This exemption to the sanctions regime against Russia is totally unacceptable, Grodd added. There are several real alternatives to Germany's gas needs, including buying through Ukraine's pipeline. He continues, people and businesses who believe in freedom, democracy, and human rights can and should unite to create breakthrough solutions to the energy crisis Russia has made. We came together to find vaccines to protect ourselves against COVID. We can find ways to protect ourselves against the Kremlin. The Ukrainian World Congress says a judicial review of the decision could result in a Canadian federal court issuing a declaration that the decision to provide a permit to Siemens was unreasonable and unauthorized, and an order squashing the permit. The Ukrainian World Congress is a global voice for the Ukrainian people worldwide, according to its bio. As an international non-governmental organization, we represent the interests of over 20 million Ukrainians in... I don't know how that word is pronounced. Let's just say in the world, because I don't know what that word means. Ukraine continues to defend itself from a fierce Russian invasion which started back on February 24th and has killed tens of thousands of personnel between the two countries and has decimated Ukrainian infrastructure. Oh, no shit. Let's move on. Because we're already, moving into hours.
Moving on out.
Moving on up. We're still into Wednesday, and I have a photo of a car bomb.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, maybe this is one of the stories you wanted to cover?
No, I'm doing the whole yes thing from the GIF posted after.
Oh, yes. Should I take a station identification break to rack an AK?
Yeah, I think you should.
There you go. RPK. Anyway, let's see. Anti-Russian sentiment is growing in occupied areas throughout Ukraine and has resulted in the killing of a Russian-appointed official targeted in a car bomb this week. This came from the British intelligence agency. The Moscow-appointed mayor of Veliki Birluk, a small town in northern Ukraine located in the Kharkiv region, was allegedly targeted and killed by Ukrainian saboteurs on Monday. Kharkiv, which shares a border with Russia, was one of the strategic launch points used during Russia's second wave of its invasion earlier this year, once Moscow had abandoned attempts to take Kyiv. Russian forces pushed southeast through Kharkiv into the Luhansk region and have since occupied the eastern half of the region. Anti-Russian sentiment in occupied Ukraine is leading to Russian and pro-Russian officials being targeted. UK officials said in Wednesday's Defense Intelligence Update. I haven't done one of those in a while, but they have been doing them daily. The targeting of officials is likely to escalate, exacerbating the already significant challenges facing the Russian occupiers and potentially increasing the pressure on already reduced military and security formations. The car bomb came the same day that Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a program that would fast-track Russian citizenship for Ukrainians. Ukrainian traitors, that is. Residents of Donetsk and Luhansk were able to apply for Russian passports beginning in 2019. Roughly 18% of the population, an area known to house Russian sympathizers in the lead-up to the war, received passports from Moscow. Russia expanded the program to residents in the southern Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, but it is unclear how many residents in these fiercely contested areas have voluntarily applied for Russian passports. Reports have surfaced since the beginning of the invasion that Russian troops have forcibly confiscated Ukrainian passports and ID cards, governance and administrative control over occupied parts of Ukraine. a UK defense official said in response to this program. Putin declared victory over the Luhansk region last week, and British intelligence warned Wednesday that Russian forces will now hone their efforts on taking small towns like Seversk and Dolina. Yeah. Sorry, had to read that one twice. Officials said this is part of Russia's strategy as they push west across Donbass from Luhansk towards cities in the region like Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. Ukraine has said that it is planning a massive counteroffensive that involves up to 1 million servicemen. Sidebar: if you're going to plan a 1 million man counteroffensive, don't telegraph it, because then they're going to know where to set up their defenses. Just do it. Learn from the Japanese, December 6, 1941. Don't tip your hand. Just do it. Moving on. You have something?
Nope, just do it.
Just do it. Okay. This counter invasion was brought to you by Nike. Anyway. Thursday. We're almost there, guys. Thursday, July 14th, day 141. And this story is called War Crimes. And you probably recognize this little Balderusky, because he was the first one to be convicted. European nations convened in the Netherlands on Thursday to coordinate ongoing efforts to punish Russian war crimes in Ukraine. Several European countries have opened investigations into Russia's ongoing invasion, and Ukraine itself has opened more than 15,000 probes into alleged war crime incidents. The ICC, International Criminal Court, has already opened an investigation into Russia, and its chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, is calling for an overarching strategy among nations looking to hold Russia accountable. The simple truth is that, as we speak, children, women, and men, the young and the old, are living in terror, Khan said in opening remarks at the Ukraine Accountability Conference in The Hague. There's suffering in Ukraine and in so many different parts of the world, Khan said, grieving about what they lost yesterday, holding their breath about what they could lose today and what tomorrow will bring. At a time like this, the law is not allowed to be a spectator. I like that. I like that saying. The law is not allowed to spectate. I like that, because that describes Uvalde perfectly. The U.S. has condemned Russian President Vladimir Putin as a war criminal, accusing him of ordering the murder and torture of Ukrainian civilians. While the U.S. is not directly involved in war crimes investigations, it has landed support to ongoing probes elsewhere. The legal branch, Eurojust, is also participating in the effort. The U.S. State Department sent human rights envoy Uzra Zaya as a representative to Thursday's conference at The Hague. With each day, the war crimes continue to mount: rape, torture, extrajudicial executions, disappearances, forced deportations, attacks on schools, hospitals, playgrounds, apartment buildings, grain silos, water, and gas facilities, Zaya said. These are not the acts of rogue units. They fit a clear pattern across every part of Ukraine touched by Russia's forces. It is unclear what actions the ICC could take against Russia following the investigations, however. Russia is a sovereign nation and is not a member of the ICC. Any consequences for the regime may take the form of further economic sanctions. Yeah, because they worked so well so far, let me tell you. All you've done is made it harder for me to buy Zenico shit. Thanks a lot. Pricks. And we are 1 hour and 18 minutes in, and I am happy to say that I am at the last story that I have to present to you today. But I will allow Mike and Scott to present whatever they've got as well. So, that being said, here's my last story for you for today. A Belarusian commander. This is a feel-good story, by the way. In the Kostas Kalinowski regiment, was quoted as saying in an interview Friday, today, July 15th, day 142, that he believes it is only a matter of time before he is forced to fight against his own nation in Russia's deadly war in Ukraine. Ukrainian leaders have warned Belarus against entering the war in support of Russia, but comments made by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko suggest Minsk may be preparing to create another battlefront Kyiv will have to grapple with. Aggression against Ukraine is now being carried out from the territory of Belarus. The commander detailed. Aggression against Ukraine is now being. Oh, I already said that. Sorry. Sorry, brain farted. Hang on a sec. It is a big regional threat right now because Lukashenko remains quasi-independent, primarily tactically advantageous for Russia. They want to use him for further escalation in the region. Translation: he's Russia's bitch. And they're going to utilize Russia's bitch as long as Putin's hand is up Lukashenko's ass. The issue of Belarus entering the war by ground troops is only a matter of time, but it could happen soon. The threat of the unknown is nothing new for this Belarusian commander who has risked his life in Ukraine for nearly a decade to repel aggression from Russian President Putin. Now serving as a brigade commander training troops outside of Kyiv, he goes by the pseudonym turned call sign Igor, which was given to him after he first volunteered to fight in Ukraine 8 years ago. In 2014, I had a meeting with a political military representative in Ukraine, and we didn't want to let everyone know we were there, he says. I discussed this with my friend, and we made a decision that he would call me Igor, and I'd use another name for him. The pseudonym stuck. In 2014, Igor voluntarily crossed into Ukraine to join up with its armed forces after Putin invaded under the guise of supporting then-President Viktor Yanukovych, who in November 2013 sparked mass protests after he rejected a plan that would further integrate Ukraine with its European neighbors. Yanukovych attempted to violently suppress the public outcry before he was ousted. In a move that echoed steps Putin would take in Belarus just 7 years later, following what Western officials have decreed as a botched election with Lukashenko again assumed the presidency, Russia entered Ukraine in February 2014 in an attempt to secure its regional influence. By March of that year, Putin had annexed Crimea, and fighting in the Donbass has since continued. But Igor said that he saw the writing on the wall and knew this would become a bigger problem if Ukraine's sovereignty wasn't respected. I realized that global changes in our region were just beginning, and I realized that the question of freedom for Ukraine and Belarus is the question of fighting against Putin and Lukashenko's regimes, adding that he had assumed that the all-out war that the world is now watching would have begun back in 2014, but said Moscow's waiting game gave them the opportunity to prepare. Igor said that he believes that just 20% of Belarusians support Lukashenko and his allegiance to Putin, and that only 3% support the special military operation in Ukraine. But Lukashenko's apparent increasing willingness to enter the war means Igor and the hundreds of other Belarusian fighters who have volunteered on the front lines could be squaring off against their own countrymen. Late last month, Belarus reportedly made moves to expand its military conscription and began distributing summons to men and women for mobilization exercises in the Gomel region, which shares a border with Ukraine, where a series of trainings began earlier this week. Igor has taken a hard line when it comes to facing his countrymen on the battlefield and said, maybe on the passport they are Russian or Belarusians, but in fact they are full of pro-Russian and pro-imperial mentality. Any soldier can refuse to enter Ukraine under various cases, but those who will obey orders of Putin and Lukashenko we will consider as enemies, and we will not have any sentiments in their direction, he added. Concerns have mounted over how Ukraine will be able to grapple with not only the addition of a northern front, but with the possibility that Russia could gain an edge as more boots on the ground enter the fray. So, surely for Ukraine, it will be more difficult, and this will divert some of the forces from the front line in the east and south, Igor says. But I'm sure that victory will be ours, and we will deal with it. The brigade commander said that the decision to enter the war would be a colossal mistake for the controversial Belarusian president. Order on the ground operation in Ukraine, he warned, and it'll be one of the last of Lukashenko's valid orders. So, that's what I have for you this week. But I know that Nightstrike and I know that Scott post regularly in a channel that I have set aside called War Never Changes. So, one of you two can decide to go first, and if you have any other stories that you'd like to share, screen share it. I will blow you up on the screen so everyone can see it, and let us know what you got. One of y'all.
Oh, I'm on a phone, so I can't screen share as well.
All right.
Fair enough.
Which one do you want me to go over?
Whatever you got.
Well, I think we already covered Nord Stream.
Yes.
Did we cover Kaliningrad?
No.
All right. Well, Kaliningrad, that's the piece of Poland technically that belongs to Russia.
Yes.
It's northeast of Poland.
Yes.
Kaliningrad's governor says Kaliningrad proposed a ban on movement of goods from Baltic states, which most of the Baltic states are NATO members.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The governor of Russia's Kaliningrad region, that's that small little piece of Russia that Russia owns northeast of Poland, as we said, has proposed a total ban on the movement of goods between Russia and the Baltic states in response to what authorities in the exclave have called a blockade by Lithuania. As a reciprocal measure, we propose to completely prohibit the movement of goods, including those in transit from third countries, between the three Baltic states and Russia. Governor Anton Alikhanov said, referring to Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, NATO members. Lithuania on Monday expanded restrictions on trade through its territory to the exclave, and phase-ins of earlier announced European Union sanctions against Moscow took effect. The EU trade restrictions have been upgraded as governments, markets, and companies worry Russia could choose to extend the shutoff of the biggest single pipeline carrying Russian gas to Germany beyond a planned 10-day maintenance period, which they did. Test of resolve. Kaliningrad borders NATO and EU member states, Lithuania and Poland, and relies on railways and roads through Lithuania for most goods. Coastal territory has been cut off from some freight transport from mainland Russia since June 17th under the EU sanctions regime. Goods that fall within humanitarian or essential categories such as food are exempted for the sanctions. Dispute over the isolation of Kaliningrad is testing Europe's resolve to enforce the sanctions amid fears of an escalating confrontation with Russia after other restrictions pushed Moscow to default on its debt. EU officials, with Germany's backing, sought in late June a swift compromise to resolve the standoff. However, sources told the Reuters news agency that Lithuania, once ruled from Moscow within the old Soviet Union, had serious reservations about making what could be seen as a concession to the Kremlin. That's the end of that one.
So, I think you and I talked about this earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who watch, I do leave the links in the description for these videos. My server is public, so if you guys want to, well, it's private, but it's public to you guys who read the descriptions. So if you ever want to join the server and join us for the lobby every day, you're more than welcome to do so. But we talk about these things throughout the week because we plan the stories that we're going to share with you on the War Room here. So
there's a couple other things I want to mention.
We can do that. It's
okay.
I think what I was going to say was, you and I talked about this ad nauseum, and It is my belief that ultimately what's going to happen is if NATO or the UN end up getting involved in what becomes an expanded global conflict, the world can be rest assured that Poland will demand, as a compensation, that Kaliningrad finally be returned to Poland.
Yep.
Because it is stuck out like a wart in Europe.
It is the only piece that wasn't returned after the Soviet Union fell.
Correct. And there's no legal justification of why it shouldn't have been. But now there is.
Yeah.
War reparations, if anything.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm going to do these out of order.
Sure.
Just real quick, because, one I really want to talk about first is this happened the other day on the 13th. But I think it's hilarious that they even had ties in the first place. But Ukraine cuts North Korean ties over recognition of separatist regions.
Yeah, that took me by surprise too.
we were talking about this earlier this week when this happened. Kyiv severs relations after North Korea becomes only the third country to recognize the independence of two Russian-backed regions. Ukraine has severed relations with North Korea over Pyongyang's recognition of two pro-Russian breakaway by People's Republics. They did that in quotes. In Ukraine's east. Kyiv's decision to cut ties with North Korea on Wednesday followed shortly after it emerged that Pyongyang had recognized the independence of two self-proclaimed republics in eastern Ukraine. I mean, this whole story is hilarious, and I can't help but laugh because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, when were they allies?
I know. I don't know. It's like we consider this decision as an attempt by Pyongyang to undermine the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. Ukraine's foreign ministry said in a statement on its website. North Korea's move to officially recognize the two breakaway territories, the Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic, in Ukraine's Donbass region, makes it only the third country in the world after Russia and Syria to do so. The Korean Central News Agency, the KCNA, the North state-run news agency, said Foreign Minister Cho Sun-hui had sent letters to her counterparts in the two regions recognizing the rebel-held areas. Cho expressed the will to develop state-to-state relations with those countries in the idea of independence, peace, and friendship, KCNA reported on Thursday morning. Earlier, the DPR's embassy in Moscow posted a photo on its Telegram channel of a ceremony in which North Korea's ambassador to Moscow, Sin Hong Chol, handed a certificate of recognition to DPR envoy Olga Makayeva.
Well done.
In a post on his Telegram channel, DPR leader Denis Pushilin said he hoped for fruitful cooperation and increased trade with North Korea, an isolated nuclear-armed state more than 6,500 kilometers, 4,000 miles away. Russia has backed the two separatist regions since 2014, recognized their independence on the eve of its February 24th invasion of Ukraine, in a move condemned by Kyiv and the West as illegal. The Kremlin justified its decision to launch the war, which it calls a special military operation, by saying it was protecting Russian speakers who live in the Donbass region from genocide. And that's in quotes, too.
Mm-hmm.
Kyiv and the West have dismissed these assertions as a pretext for waging war and seizing swaths of Ukraine's territory. North Korea previously expressed support for Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. It's also stressed its close ties to Russia, blaming the Ukraine crisis on the hegemonic policy of the U.S. and other Western nations. And that's the end of that one. But I'm sorry, I just couldn't help but laugh that North Korea thinks they are a player in the region at all.
They're not a player in anything.
That's my point.
it's staggering that they even think that anyone gives a shit what they think.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a country that, if you
I
look at a
didn't even
global
I didn't even
satellite
know they
view,
had a dialogue.
no, they don't. Like, the thing is like, if you ever looked at a global satellite view of the world at night, right? You see, like, city lights light up the borders of the country. You can see the outline of individual states and countries.
All right.
And if you look at, like, say, the United States, like, you can see, oh, there's Texas and there's this and there's that.
Right.
Because you can see all the
Right.
city
Oh,
lights,
yeah, I
right?
get it. I get that.
You look at fucking the Korean Peninsula, and you see South Korea, and then you see, like, this black hole north of it because there's no city lights in North Korea at night. It's all blacked out. They don't exist at night. Apparently, they're fucking Nosferatu. They don't exist.
Yeah.
And yet they have a dialogue? Fuck out of here.
I know it's ridiculous. Did we go over the M270s?
No, go on. Go right ahead.
Okay, I'll go with the the one I got further down.
Sure.
'Cause, here it is.
The floor is yours.
It says Russia, Ukraine latest updates. First M270 rocket systems arrive. The M270 multiple launch rocket system is seen firing during. That's during an exercise. Ukraine's defense minister says the first M270 multiple rocket launch systems have arrived in Ukraine. UK's Foreign Office summons Russian Ambassador Andrei Killen to express deep concern over reports of the death of British aid worker Paul Ure while in the custody of Russian proxy in Ukraine. It's a timeline. They received more than 30 million in donations. The U.S.'s biggest donor to the Ukraine. Yeah, they're going over the donations from the United States. Don't talk too much about the M70 though. The M270 though. It's just a timeline. It says the first M270 rocket systems have arrived in Ukraine. Ukraine's defense minister said that they arrived without specifying the country which handed them over, which most likely the United States. Or one of the other NATO countries. They said he goes on to say they will be good company for HIMARS on the battlefield. Minister Alexei Reznikov wrote on Twitter, referring to the U.S. donated systems that the Ukraine says it has used to hit Russian ammunition depots and barracks. Ukraine says it has hit over 30 Russian military logistics targets in recent weeks, hurting Russia's assault capability. Okay, and that's about it on that. But it's good to note that they're getting better equipment.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we have donated more in 142 days than they spent in Afghanistan in 5 years. So, yeah, you would think that the tech got better.
Yeah,
And the expedition of getting that tech in their hands got better.
Yeah,
We hear these stories about, oh, yeah, what used to take months or years that we were doing in days and weeks. All right. But you're still not winning the war yet.
And did you mention Belarus, the one I posted earlier?
I touched on Belarus, but I'm not sure of the specifics of what you're getting at. So go ahead and share.
Well, okay, this is a supposition piece, but it says, will Western pressure trigger Russia's merger with Belarus? And it says Putin and Lukashenko have suggested furthering the Union state will protect their nations from the effects of sanctions. Earlier this month, Russian President Vladimir Putin made it sound as though Western nations were to thank for making his decades-old dream to merge Russia with neighboring Belarus come true. Unprecedented political and sanctions pressure from the so-called collective West pushes us to speed up the merging process, Putin said on July 1st at a forum in the western Belarusian city of Grodno, a stone's throw away from the European Union's border. He says, because together it will be easier to minimize the damage from the illegal sanctions imposed on Russia and Belarus by the West, Putin said. I hate to say it, but it's not illegal when everybody does it. When your only allies are everybody else who's literally been exiled from most of a civilized society, that has to say something.
I just find it
Anyways,
funny that they're talking about the strengthening unity between Russia and Belarus. Like,
no, hold on. You need to read a bit more between that.
Go
The
on.
strengthening unity.
Yeah.
A union of states.
go on.
Are you
I think we're on the same
alluding?
page.
It's like a week earlier, his Belarusian counterpart, Alex Lukashenko, urged leaders of the other ex-Soviet nations to get closer to the union state of Russia and Belarus, or face the loss of their independence.
Join
Today,
us
the
or
nations
die.
of post-Soviet space must be sincerely interested in their rapprochement with the Union state, if, of course, they want to keep their sovereignty and independence. He said in a video address, and I know that's bad Russian accent, but
You're getting better.
I digress. Those who hesitate to have to understand, without the promptest unification and rapprochement, stronger interstate ties, and just simple human relations, tomorrow we might not be anymore. Well, at least you won't, Lukashenko. Said Lukashenko, who has ruled Belarus since 1994, over 20 years almost.
Mm-hmm.
Almost 20 years. It's like 18 right now. But still.
No, Putin has allowed him to.
Putin has allowed him to rule since 1994. You're right about that. Because you can't rig elections that many years without having some sort of backing. No?
Major backing.
Yeah.
And Putin and Medvedev kept trading back and forth, and that was within their one own country.
Right. And whose
And you
re-elections
think
have increasingly been marred by violence and against his rivals and protesters. But yeah, we saw how the Belarusian protesters against the war got smacked. The former collective farm manager, nicknamed Batka Daddy, hoped to succeed the heavy drinking Russian President Boris Yeltsin, whose mental and physical state was rapidly deteriorating. Yeltsin, however, appointed Putin, a teetotal intelligence chief, as his successor in 1999, and Lukashenko hit the brakes on the merger.
Yeah,
but he kept milking the Kremlin, getting multi-billion ruble loans, discounted natural gas, trade preferences, and perks for Belarusian labor migrants. Russia's backing helped Lukashenko, who has long been dubbed Europe's last dictator, to keep his head above water politically and economically, especially when the West sanctioned Minsk for its intensified crackdown on opposition and critics. Lukashenko also kept looking for leeway. He sought to wean his economy off the profits from state-run collective farms, chemical plants, and a giant oil refinery that used cheap Russian crude. Defying his image of former communist official with a chevron mustache and a strong rural accent, he created the Belarus High-Tech Park, Belarusian Silicon Valley, where tens of thousands of IT engineers developed impressive software and startups. But the IT sector shrank after the boiling point in 2020, when hundreds of thousands of Belarusians took to the streets to protest against his sixth re-election. Been re-elected 6 times? Yeah, that's fishy.
Yeah, as long as the people love you.
Yeah. They don't, apparently.
Clearly.
They clashed with police and held strikes, but Lukashenko's law enforcement agencies responded with violence, torture, arrests, and prison sentences. And no one heard from them again.
Shocker.
Who's that sound
Gulag.
like?
3 weeks. You
Yeah.
see that? Okay, so the thing that bugs me about this is Lukashenko still thinks that he can trust Vladimir Putin. Oh, he's my comrade. When the world is taken over, he will give me cabinet position. And at the end of the
Well,
day, I don't think so. I think
well,
he's being used.
Lukashenko still thinks that he has a shot getting into the larger, bigger Russian hierarchy if
Right.
he plays ball. You
Exactly.
know,
And he's just
he
being used.
and he may be being used, or they may actually go through with it, and it may even get worse. We don't know. We honestly don't. But the article goes on about the IT thing. Let's see, what's it? Tens of thousands left Belarus, including many IT experts, mostly for neighboring Poland, Lithuania, and Ukraine. Lukashenko appeared cornered, and Moscow remained his only backer while the Kremlin kept pushing him to finalize the merger. Uh, Russian officials remembered too well how Putin's approval ratings rose to a stratospheric 88% after Moscow's previous acquisition, the 2014 annexation of Crimea from the Ukraine. Uh, the article goes on to say, in bold letters, it says the USSR revived. To some observers, the merger is a done deal. They view it as part of Moscow's plan to announce the revival of the truncated replica of the Soviet Union this December. This matter has been solved in the light of the USSR's centennial anniversary in December 2022, and Putin plans to create a third empire that would succeed Tsarist Russia and USSR and include Belarus. Kiev-based and include Belarus. Kiev-based analyst Alexei Kush said, "What's happening now is simply a technological step to get the public opinion ready for this act." Uh, but other analysts say Lukashenko is still trying to push back. Lukashenko is badly cornered, but seems to be resisting the final solution. Pavel Luzin, a Russian-based analyst with the Jamestown Foundation, says, a think tank in Washington, D.C. Uh, while Putin's statements about the merger are a chance to boost his approval ratings in Russia, Lukashenko's words about the Union State are nothing but an alarm signal to the West. A Belarusian-born observer said, Lukashenko's words are more of an alarm signal for other nations, mostly in the EU. You are pushing us closer to Russia. Igor
Go ahead.
Tishkevich, who is based in Kiev, told Al Jazeera, because it's an Al Jazeera article. It says, and when it comes to the Belarusian public, unification is far from popular. Wow, how long? Okay, we got a little bit. In July 2021, the number of Belarusians who staunchly backed it rose to 9% from 5% in 2020. According to the latest independent survey on the matter conducted by the Chatham House, a British think tank, 11% of those polled wanted Belarus and Russia to have a single market, a single foreign policy, and army, and about a third stood for a single market and a free trade zone, according to the poll. With moods like these, it's hard to conduct a merger, Tishkevich said. Even if state-backed Belarusian media outlets were to support this idea, this would hardly change the public's mood, as only a quarter of Belarusians rely on these channels, he said. No matter how harsh your propaganda is, if 75% of the population doesn't watch it, you have no mechanisms to influence these people's opinions. Even if your propaganda is genius, Tishkevich said. And that's the end of that.
Well done. That's actually a really good story. You covered it really well, too.
I tried. I think there's one more.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's one more. This one brings us back to the Sino-Soviet War almost,
All right.
because Russia sanctions 384 Japanese lawmakers over stance on Ukraine. Can you believe that? I can't believe that. Russia bans 384 Japanese lawmakers from entering country in response to Tokyo joining the G7 in sanctioning Moscow. Russia has banned 384 Japanese lawmakers from entering its territory in response to Tokyo aligning itself with the international sanctions against Moscow over its war on Ukraine. The Russian Foreign Ministry on Friday blacklisted the Japanese parliamentarians, naming them on its website and accusing them of adopting an unfriendly anti-Russian position, notably by expressing unfounded accusations against our country concerning the special military operation in Ukraine. And that's in quotes, by the way. And I had to do a little bit of the accent too because that's ridiculous. Uh, I'm ridiculous, but regardless, Tokyo has hit Russia with harsh sanctions for invading Ukraine, joining the G7, and freezing Russian central bank assets. Tension between Tokyo and Moscow has grown since Russian forces declared war on Kyiv. In February, after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced he was sending troops into Ukraine, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida termed Moscow's move an unacceptable violation of Ukrainian sovereignty and international law. Uh, Russia's actions very clearly damage Ukraine's sovereignty and go against international law. We once again criticize these moves and strongly urge Russia to return to diplomatic discussions, he said at the time. On July 1st, Russia published a decree transferring Japan's stake in the Sakhalin II oil and gas project on Sakhalin, an island in Russia's Far East, to a Russian operator. The bulk of Sakhalin II's project's liquid natural gas output had until now been delivered to Japan. Tokyo had earlier indicated it hoped to retain its stake, saying participation in the project was essential to its energy security, as Japan is highly dependent on fossil fuel imports. Approximately 8% of Japan's LNG imports have so far come from Russia. In May, the Russian Foreign Ministry said it had banned entry to several dozen Japanese officials, including Prime Minister Kishida, over Tokyo's joining international sanctions against Moscow. And that's the end of that one. And it's just like, that's why I mentioned the Sino-Soviet thing, because, the Russian-Japanese tensions are rising again.
Yes.
So, but I just think it's hilarious. They're angry at Japan. It seems to me that if you're not Russia, that if you're Russia, you're lashing out at everyone because you can't do shit right now.
Correct.
And unfortunately, the way they're lashing out makes them look like petty children. Have you noticed this?
So they're liberals.
Oh, obviously.
Emotionally outbursting liberals.
Well, what do you call communists?
Idiots.
Mm.
Lemmings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a couple of names. I mean, wait, before I do that, do you have anything else you want to add, or is that your last story?
There are two other ones I did want to touch on, but
the floor is yours.
When we stop, I can.
No, the floor is yours.
Because even with everything that's going on, there is one good thing that's come out of all this right now.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to go with this one right now. U.S. Russian space agencies signed deal to share flights to the ISS.
Right.
Okay.
Science transcends politics.
That's good. Okay.
Yes.
NASA and Roscosmos have sought for years to renew integrated crewed flights as part of a long-standing civil alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The United States and Russia space agencies signed a long-sought agreement to integrate flights to the International Space Station, allowing Russian cosmonauts to fly on U.S.-made spacecraft in exchange for American astronauts being able to ride on Russia's Soyuz. In a statement on Friday, Roscosmos said the deal with NASA is in the interest of Russia and the U.S. and will promote the development of cooperation within the framework of the ISS program. It would also facilitate exploration of outer space for peaceful purposes, the Russian Space Agency said. NASA and Roscosmos, the two-decade-old space station's core partners, have sought for years to renew routine integrated crewed flights part of their long-standing civil alliance. Now, one of the last links of cooperation between the U.S. and Russia as tensions flare over the war in Ukraine. The first integrated flights under the new agreement will come in September, NASA said, with U.S. astronaut Frank Rubio launching to space from the Moscow-leased Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, alongside two cosmonauts,
Ooh, same
Sergei
place that, Triple G's from.
Sergei Prokopiev and Dmitry Petelin. And let me tell you, trying to pronounce Russian names, awful.
Prokopiev.
At least for me. Yeah. In exchange, cosmonaut Anna Kikina will join two U.S. astronauts and a Japanese astronaut on a SpaceX crew Dragon flight to the orbital laboratory, launching from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The two agencies have previously shared astronaut seats on the U.S. Space Shuttle and the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. After the shuttle's retirement in 2011, the U.S. relied on Russia's Soyuz for sending American astronauts to the space station until 2020, when SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule revived NASA's human spaceflight capability and began routine ISS flights from Florida. By the way, who do you think canceled the whole space shuttle? That was Obama, by the way.
You didn't
Well,
build
they
that
did
space
have-
program.
We don't need a space program.
You didn't build that space program.
Mhm.
These big
Kiki-
Dumbo ears of mine did.
Kikina, an engineer and the only woman in Russia's active cosmonaut corps, is set to be the first Russian to fly SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule. She has been training for the mission at NASA's astronaut headquarters in Houston while the agreement was under negotiation.
Hmm.
The U.S. Space Agency has said having at least one Russian and one American on board the space station is crucial to keeping the laboratory running. Flying integrated crews ensures that there are appropriately trained crew members on board the station for essential maintenance and spacewalks, NASA said in a statement on Friday. Shortly before the agreement was announced, President Vladimir Putin replaced the head of Roscosmos, Dmitry Rogozin, with Yuri Borisov, a former deputy prime minister and deputy defense minister. And that's the end of that one. That's one I really wanted to touch on because, instead of all the doom and gloom that we've been hearing out of Ukraine, it was something a bit more uplifting. It's a bit more positive, even though it's really just a token gesture.
Damn, which means I can't do my last thing.
Hmm.
So I'm just gonna drag you back down into the doldrums.
Well,
Fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. Wait,
Go
what's
for
your other story?
The other story I had was, did you hear about the EU proposing new sanctions on Russian gold exports?
I think I did, but go ahead and tell the audience.
All right. The move follows a decision by the world's most industrialized nations at a G7 meeting in late June.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The European Union is set to target Russian gold exports in an update to its sanctions packages, while further tightening previous measures on Moscow amid the continuing war in Ukraine. The EU has so far approved 6 packages of sanctions on Russia. The last one passed in June that an imposed ban on most Russian oil imports. Russia's brutal war against Ukraine continues unabated. Therefore, we are proposing today to tighten our hard-hitting EU sanctions against the Kremlin, enforce them more effectively, and extend them until January 2023, said EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Wow, that's
von der Leyen. Yeah.
Von der Leyen, yeah, in a statement on Friday. Moscow must continue to pay a high price for its aggression, she added. The move on gold exports fulfills a decision agreed upon by the most industrialized nations at the G7 meeting in late June, in which EU members Germany, France, and Italy took part of. The United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and Japan have already imposed the ban. The proposal from the Commission, which draws up international sanctions for the bloc's 27 countries, will be discussed at a meeting of EU foreign ministers on Monday. EU governments must now agree on the measures for them to become law, although diplomats say they were uncontroversial and should pass through easily. The 6 previous rounds of sanctions have targeted Russia's economy, financial system, central bank, top government officials, as well as Russian President Vladimir Putin and his inner circle. Some of the punitive measures only started going into effect last month after a transition period. Ukrainian demands. On Thursday, Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Olga Stefanishina urged the EU to adopt new sanctions against Russia. We hope the next 7th package of sanctions will have a strong restrictive potential and will be taken without further delay and as soon as possible. She said. She told reporters before an informal meeting of EU affairs ministers held by the Czech presidency of the 27-nation bloc in Prague. Maros Sivkovic, the deputy head of European Commission, said that the EU would also seek to close all exit routes for those wanting to bypass the sanctions. It is of course a very complex mechanism, so we need to not only set up but also check, monitor, and close the places that would create platforms for an exit in some way, Sivkovic, who was also in Prague, added. He dismissed the notion of fatigue for helping Ukraine among EU members, which Russia invaded on February 24th. He said, "I've never seen so strongly demonstrated unity and effort from all member states to look for all possible reserves, whether we talk about financial aid or arms supplies," Sefcovic said. And that's the end of that one. And there's one other thing I want to mention. We were talking about the Russian prime minister earlier. What was his name? He's been in the news this week.
Dmitry Medvedev?
No, the Italian prime minister.
Oh, shit. I said it earlier.
Mario Draghi.
Draghi, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, yesterday, he resigned. But here's the stipulation. Even though he resigned, the Italian president, because there's a president above the prime minister, has said he did not accept his resignation, and that he demands that Draghi go up in front of the Italian parliament and explain everything in detail
before he leaves.
You know,
it's a formality.
Yeah, formality, but it may also mean like it may, whatever happens after after he gives that, Parliament may say they want him to stay, and who knows on that.
Doesn't mean he will, though.
It does mean he will, but again, it's he's resigning over frustration over the coalition that they had in the government.
Same thing with Boris Johnson. He was pressured by basically leftist bullshit to step down as prime minister, right? The thing is he stepped down for his geopolitical duties. He is still prime minister of England as of today. He will stay there until a suitable alternative through emergency ballot is selected, which means the office doesn't remain abandoned. He will still do it. It's just not at such a public capacity.
But here's the thing. I've looked into that, and none of those choices in England are great choices.
No, they're all shit.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is in British politics, you see.
Yeah.
The thing is, from his party.
Those politics sparked the creation of our country.
The thing I maintain to this day, that something that G-Web's taught me, is government works best when it's in gridlock. And the reason that British Parliament works is because it's in gridlock. It doesn't have a two-party system. They have like 8 different parties. And because they have so many different voices, most laws never pass. Only the blatantly obvious ones that get unanimous consent across 8 different platforms pass. And that works. That works.
I get that. I've said the articles I wanted to get out of the way. Those are most of the ones I posted in War Never Changes.
Sure.
But,
no, I think you did great.
I mean, it's not technically Ukrainian, but I do want to mention this. I did post it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about the first laser weapon for a fighter delivered to the Air Force?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the U.S. Air Force, obviously.
Yes.
But I saw that, and I'm like, finally, now all we need is our jet fighters to transform into robots so we can have Robotech.
Oh God.
You knew that was coming.
I was I was Techno Man.
Oh, come on, man.
Nah, Techno
Come
Man.
on.
Techno Man is
Come on,
badass.
man. We need Robotech.
I got
See,
Techno
I was a
Man.
Gundam guy.
I got Slade. We're good. See, we all came from different backgrounds, but it all works. Okay,
You know-
so I want to pose a question to you all.
All right.
I'm going to list you a set of names, and I want you to try to tell me what they all have in common. It's a fun little exercise. Here we go. Steven Seagal. Leonardo DiCaprio. Gerard Depardieu. Jean-Claude Van Damme. I'm missing one. Mickey Rourke. Oh, and former heavyweight champion Roy Jones Jr. So I gave you 6 names.
All
What do they all have in common?
all have Russian citizenship.
2 of those 6 do, yes.
I knew Seagal did.
Only 2?
2. Gerard Depardieu and
Seagal.
Roy Jones Jr. were granted Russian
No, I
citizenship.
think Seagal also has
Seagal
it.
is 2.
No, he has an honorary Japanese citizenship. Because he's married.
No,
to
he's
one.
buddy with Putin because the
Buddy
whole
with Putin.
martial art thing.
Okay, now put it all together. What do those 6 people have in common?
They're allies of Putin.
They used to all be allies of Vladimir Putin. Now, which one of them has reneged on that?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
DiCaprio.
Nope.
Really?
Really? Tell us.
Who-
We're in-
Who reneged on it live on TV in tears?
Gotta be Gerard Depardieu.
No. Yesterday, Mickey Rourke live
Really?
interview, broke down, saying that he regrets to have respected a man less than 10 years ago who seemed like a great world leader and could devolve into such an animalistic turd burglar, basically. Those were
Oh,
his
you mean like
exact words.
Obama?
But I hate to say this, but didn't I used to say the same thing?
You
Mhm.
did.
Didn't I used to
did.
say that if you want to see what a real world leader looks like, look no further than Vladimir Putin?
And didn't I say that he was a fucking thug?
Well,
Mhm.
he became one for sure. He was always one in the shadows.
He
but
always was
now
one.
it came out. But like when
Well,
it came to like his public image before this whole thing kicked off, you got to admit, geopolitically speaking, he was a decent leader. Like you could look up to that guy, you know? It's
Yeah,
like
well,
instead of leaving his
and-
border open and fucking not getting shit done, he was action man. He was going into submarines looking at
Yeah,
shipwrecks and he was riding
did-
horses bareback and shit.
yeah, but I'm a holdout from the Cold War. Okay.
Sure.
You know, yes, I was born in the Cold War during
You're
the Cold War.
kind of
I
born
w-
at the waning days of it.
Waning days, I will give you that. I'll give you that. But it was still the Cold War then. Okay. And
Mhm.
I've been saying this for years, and maybe you'll remember this. You can take the man, the Soviet Union, the KGB agent out of the Soviet Union. You cannot take the Soviet Union out of the KGB agent. And I've been saying that about Putin for years. Okay, that he may be, or may look like he's a great leader, but under that facade, he's the same Soviet bastard as everybody else was in the Soviet Union that were either in the military or in charge of the Soviet Union.
Nah, Boris Yeltsin was just an alcoholic.
Well,
And he's
no,
dead.
that was well, you know, that it wasn't just Yeltsin though. It was also what was the other one? Who was the other one?
Gorby?
Gorby
before
was
you.
fine.
It was Gorbachev was one too.
Khrushchev, Brezhnev,
Honestly, all of them were alcoholics, but that's beside the point.
They're
Yeah.
Russians.
But the fact is, the Russians, you expect that. But the fact is, they were at the top, so technically they were just as corrupt as everybody
So
else.
the
in the middle.
worst one is the teetotaler who's still in power today.
Yep, the worst. Yeah, the worst one is the guy who's in charge of the Stasi in East Germany.
So the moral of the story
he was
is
KGB oversight of the Stasi. That's not nice people.
the moral of the story is the lovable Russians are the alcoholic ones, and the teetotaling Russians like Putin, those are the ones you have to worry about.
Anyways, I've been going on about this for years, and finally, someone,
Mickey Rourke
obviously Putin,
cried.
proved me freaking right.
I'm disappointed. In
Because
Putin.
you know I'm right.
No, I mean I'm disappointed in Putin. It's like, son, I are disappointed.
I don't
Really?
know. I think son IR disappoint is a little bit too far.
Sunski, I disappoint ski.
That's a bit closer.
Closer, right? Yeah. Eat your
But
borscht.
that's all I've got
Bloody
for this
eat your
evening.
borscht.
But you know, it's gonna be a cold winter in Moscow this year.
I don't think they have Winter Soldier.
They don't yet.
That was an American creation.
Yes, that was.
Did I mention I'm getting my dog back on air?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, it's happening tomorrow.
You also mentioned you were going to be eating ramen for the foreseeable future because of it.
Ah, but I had ribeyes. You saw it in the foodie channel.
Yes, but I've got T-bone steak for tomorrow.
I had ribeyes. I'm happy. Anyway, it's been 2 hours, 11 minutes, and now 20 seconds. I think
Sorry.
we've covered all the stories.
We have.
And I've got
Gone
a
over
headache. And I didn't have a
You
negligent
always have a
discharge.
headache.
Which is good. So I think with that, I'm going to play this. And I'm going to thank you if anybody is still watching this 2 hours and 11 minutes in. I'm sure you will, or you may have dropped out and you may be coming back for the replay. Either way, that's cool with me. So anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. But if you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlists and see if my other playlists will be of interest to you. This was the War Room. This was day 142, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the scroller. Yeah, day 142. We will be back next week for the War Room again, and we will cover all things Ukrainian and Russian. So
Maybe
anyway,
European, depending on what happens.
most likely. Either way, thanks for watching. Slava Ukraini,
Heroim Slava.
and we'll see you next week.
Shut up,